Everybody, it's Patrick at the Pitch Stack, and it's been a while since I put out a video, especially one with me talking in front of you guys or just in general, because I was actually going to put up an Armory Night video last Friday, but unfortunately the battery for the GoPro actually cut out, so I only got about half of that. But I'm going to get you guys some more Armory videos, because what I want to do is expand a little bit more on my heroes now that the ProQuest season is over. And the calling is changed up a little bit because of the new meta shakedown with the bans. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the ProQuest that I went to. We're going to talk about the bans and how I see Icelander as a future hero for Flesh and Blood in the classic constructed meta. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is the one ProQuest that I went to. Unfortunately, time, money, and effort, some days off on my job as well. They kind of conflict with my possibilities of going to as many ProQuests as I can. I was only able to go to the one that I'm usually going to, which is Loot Card Shop. I went to the RTN season there. We had 6 rounds. Unfortunately, we didn't have that many people for this one, so we're doing 5 rounds instead. There's 5 rounds of Swiss, and it actually started out really good. For the ProQuest, I did bring Boomer, Arcane, Icelander. And I was able to set up the stream for that. So if you guys want to watch the stream, I got all of it on the live for this channel instead of the videos that are gonna be on the live. My wife was able to help out with that. So thank you to her for helping out with the stream while I was playing. So round 1 was Arachne. He went into the first tournament ever that he's ever done, and he went 0-5, poor lad. But we all been there when we were wanting to start out and learning Flesh and Blood and get to some tournaments. So I won on that one. It was kind of even life total, but if it was a little bit higher on the life totals and I wanted to pull off the kill turn, it would have been a little bit more rough because I messed up the sequencing just a tad bit. It was Blue Bolt into Mighty Moon into a non-fused red ether ice vein. But the thing is, you do Blue Bolt and then you do the Ice Vein and then you do the Moon because you've already fused, and you can just use that blue fuse for the Moon. We get there and we go to the next match up, which was Ice Lexi. Unfortunately, this is an Ice Lexi with AB3, so it's going to be Bullseye Bracers, Heart of Ice, and No Room Boots. It kind of sucked in the beginning because turn 5 or 6, we got our boots blown up, and from there we're kind of just like, okay, we just need to try to get as much tempo and push as much damage as we can. And unfortunately for the Lexi, all 3 of the 3 of a kinds were subpar. I think one of them he didn't find any arrows. One he found 1 arrow only, and then I can't remember the other one, but that was also subpar to the point where his hands also weren't great, where they were just like a lot of reds together. And I was able to have such a life lead gain, like between me and him, I was like maybe low 20s, and he was like towards the 9 area, and I had so much of a life disparity. Even if he blew him up my boots, I still won. So for round 3, that pushed us all the way to the stream table, and please do not watch it, but if you want to watch it, go ahead. I mean, the thing is, it's not that my performance was bad, it's just that I'm going up against a Fatigue Oldhim, and that was Spencer on Fatigue Oldhim. So round 3 was on stream. Unfortunately, we didn't get there because I thought 1 Remembrance was going to be enough, but I should have teched in 2 red Eisenhower Weather Veins, and it's basically you just 1 cost whenever you fuse, you get 4 frostbites. What happened is you get your 3 hexes out as much as you can, and then as many amulets and chills on the board as much as you can with some pots. Try to get as much set up, and he does run Warhorn, which is what the Remembrance is to help out for. But you do double Ice Vein, double Weather Vein into a Ice Eternal that is non-fused or non-paid into it, and then they just go into have 8 damage from that, and then 8 frostbites, and then strip their hand, and then you do another Ice Eternal in your arsenal that's already sitting there for a while. You basically pitch stack it this way, but that would have been a better turnout, but I didn't get it that way. Unfortunately, I thought 1 Remembrance was gonna be enough, and I thought that Fatigue Oldhims would not really exist because I knew there was only 1 Oldhim that I know of that would constantly go there, and his name is Anthony, and he did make top 8, so a little bit more on that. For round 4, we did go against a Bravo, and I had heard him before whenever I was doing round 2 that he was right beside me. He had brought no arcane barrier, which I did go up against him, and it's nice. Nice to have a racing arcane fight with a Bravo that has no arcane barrier. He had said that he was kind of trying to avoid me, that he wished he didn't go up against me because he's not very well versed with AB racing or AB conserving his life that way. He says he just likes to race, and that's where he generally likes to do, but we were able to get there in the end with like 15 to 12 life on my end, and he was able to lose that one on that end. For the last match, since it was 5 rounds, it was a Dramai, and it was a sucky Dramai match at the beginning. My hands were just like kind of like the Lexi hands. Just a lot of blue, a lot of reds and poppers together at the beginning whenever he didn't throw down dragons, and then blues mixed together whenever I didn't need the when I didn't need them. I need to push damage on my turn, and it was like to a point where low 30s and him, and I was like 15. We were able to get some tempo and damage towards him late game because it just was not great. I was like last turn, I was down to 2. He was down to 9. I had the kill turn if I had one more damaged up, because he had 1 card in his hand. He had 9. I had exactly 9, but he had 1 red in his hand, so I needed 10 damage instead of 9. That was with my nodes too. It was like a frosting with 2 damage plus for the node, and then the waning moon, and then like a bolt. Like it was just like the turn that I needed is supposed to be there, but it didn't, and I had to use my boots to stay alive. So he's like, yeah, you know what? I think you might just squeak in. Mine's pretty good, so. I was thinking to stuff, yeah, you're probably going to be on the top 8, so that means that's good for me, and then Spencer's definitely going to be on the top 8, so that's good for me, and I squeaked in at 8th place. That was my last name being called is 8th place, but unfortunately Spencer was 2nd seed because his name was 2nd, like his name was called 2nd, and I go up against him in round 8, which I'm just really wondering why maybe Jim paired us up that way. It's not supposed to, but I go up against him again, and it's just not a great matchup. It's probably a little bit, probably worse in terms of life totals. They just straight up fatigued me out. We were both on the 20 range, and then after my last Ice Eternal, couldn't do anything. I said, I just concede. Like, okay, we're just cool. I'm the fist bump. We didn't really want to draw it out because I've had just a few more cards in my deck. But if I were to go up against, I want to say that it was a better way of me going up against Patrick Nelson, which he was on Dash as 1st seed. If I were to beat him, I go up against a normal Oldhim that's not fatigue. I think I would have a better play into it. And but Anthony's a monster in that, so I'm not so sure. Unfortunately, if I had gotten that thing and I got up to the 2nd with me and Spencer, because it was Anthony and Spencer in the top finals, they split it or something because the gold foil was Metacarpus node. Yeah, that was kind of like a dagger in my heart. I really wanted that node, man. That would have been nice to have grabbed that, but unfortunately we couldn't get there, and that was actually pre-banned. So I'm going to talk to you guys about how I feel the ban is going to be. So for the BNR or the BNS, however you want to say it, the ban and restricted announcement for the suspended cards that we have is going to be Hypothermia and Amulet into Icelander Living Legends out. And this is actually being recorded post calling, so now that we know that Michael Hamilton has won, that's another 100 points, and that's getting it faster and faster for us to get Icelander to Living Legend. For my deck, I'm still testing out some things. I'm not really caring too crazy much about the testing. I know that some of the things in my mind was Blue Winter's Well and Polar Blast, because I actually didn't have Polar Blast in there. I know it's a really good card. You cycle through, and it's a free Frostbite and free Waning Moon, or just 2 resources that you can use for like Brothers in Arms or your Ironhide Gauntlets. But I added those 2 in, and now that we see the calling, he's experimenting with red. And I would have to go to the podcast to know what his reasoning was for not liking blue. He did say it in the interview, and I did hear it. But he goes with red Winter's Bite instead, and then he does 3 CNC. I already had CNC in there because CNC is really good into, of course, Lexi and Azalea. But you have Phi, which doesn't often have a lot of block. And if they can help it, they like to, they'll just take the 6, and it'll be like maybe it would be a Phoenix Flame if they get lucky. But for my setup, I'm experimenting with some more play around flex blocks. flex spots, which for me is like Brothers in Arms is really good. There's a lot of things that need to share that tunic token, or tunic counter, I should say. And I'm putting in 3 Eisenhower Weather Vanes for the fatigue matchup for Oldhim. Now, again, it may change because I don't have any events or tournaments that I'm going to be going to by the next time the BNR will change. The next BNR is March 20th, and so things may change. I may change my deck, and Outsiders is going to be on the 24th, so I'm going to want to shift my focus a little bit on other heroes, which is why I'm experimenting with Arachne now. I got to get the cards laid out. It's a little bit more fatiguey than you would think, but we're probably going to be playing Death Dealer Lightning Lexi because it's one of my favorite decks as well, just for armory's sake and things like that. For the future of the next couple months, I might go towards Riptide, and that's just dependent on how his character looks and plays and things like that. So we're going to get 2 heroes within the next set. That's going to be new heroes that we don't have seen yet. Azalea and Katsu, their stock WTR and Arc heroes are going to be in there. So for me, that's how I'm approaching these bans. I'm approaching the bans with Hypothermia being the most pertinent when it comes to the bans of Dash, Lexi, Briar, and Dramai. Those are the really hard-hitting ones, and for some reason LSS put in 5, which you can do. You can put that in for 5. There's some things that don't have natural go again. However, it's sort of like a 50-50 or 60-40 that you're not going to have it, and they're going to have the natural go again. And a big part of that is going to be off the sword, have the natural not go again type thing. However, I don't side that in, so it didn't really matter to me. For Dash, it definitely helps out the most. Out of all the matchups that it really affects us, it helps out the most because it is pretty rough sometimes. They have a whole lot of blues. They have the AB to back it up, 3 AB blues. It's sort of like a Oldhim where it's a little bit slower, or Bravo's a little bit slower. I guess it is more in towards of Bravo because they can put out a lot of damage. So they can just basically pitch to our Arcane, threaten some on hits with Courier, or Harpoon. They can pull out some Harpoons so they can rip out some cards out of our hand, so they're not getting that towards them. I think that hurts us the most with Dash, but it's not going to necessarily kill us in that matchup, make it unwinnable. Dramai is, there's a lot of ways to time walk Dramai, because that's one of the things we have to do, otherwise we're just dead, and it's still a rough matchup. So a lot of the times whenever I was playing against Dramai, I might have an arsenal with Hypothermia, but maybe there's a Channel Lake Frigid and there's a Popper in my hand. There's just so many things that I was gonna give the Dramai a hard time. I can just pop, save the Hypothermia. I'll have, and it sort of sucks because you have like all blues and then a Popper, and then like, I don't want to toss this Popper at them. So just, there's a lot of ways to stop their turn that this might be a little bit helpful for me in the matchup, to completely just wipe out their turn. You can always snipe a dragon too, so that's just, I'm hoping that it smooths it out just a little bit. So with Lexi, it's kind of one of those things where they're filling the bans as well as us with Amulet, but it's not that impactful. A lot of them didn't go too crazy with them. Some actually put chills on the board. And I think that was actually at the PQ. He actually put a chill on the board with some of his cards. So those Hypothermia would slow down the 3 of a kind turns. And because we fell under a Frostbite or 2, or just Disruption on our own, we need to be able to pitch 1 blue for peak. We can't just do 4 resources. We may get lucky and just blue plus a Tunic to break the Frostbite, but that's about it. We also have Findale's Freeing Tunic, or maybe Wounded Bull. Those are 3. So like, there's just a lot of 3 costing actions that we need to do. Ice Veins as well. We like to do 1 block, or like we may have to just block nothing and have an Ice Vein on our turn, and then throw out some Arcane, maybe a Hail from Arsenal. And that's gonna be the 1 card we have to just take everything, but we can't do that with Lexi, so it slows it down just a little bit. Now we're going to move to the calling and see how those have affected on the top 8, and they really didn't affect much. So for the calling on the top 8, when you look at it, you may think on the surface that it really didn't do much. And a lot of people would just chalk it up as, yes, the top 8 sucks. Like, Ice is dominating 7 out of 8 heroes. However, if you go to the top 32, it's way more diverse. Even just the top 16 is way diverse. There was actually a dash on the number 9 spot, not almost bubbling in. I think there was a couple Lexis towards the top 16, that is. Alex 4 missing the top 8 as well. He was on Icelander, but it was like a wildfire variation of it. He's just a wizard master in general. He's a Kano master. So he's been playing a more Kano-ish type of feel to the Icelander deck. So you got to look at it that way, and also look at the future events that are coming up, because a lot of people are screaming for emergency bans because they need to be taken down a peg. They didn't work for these bans, yada yada yada. However, we do have a Battle Hardened this weekend that is coming up. I think that's in Italy. And I think Ark, he's a fellow Wizard player, he's going to be streaming that. So we're going to have that to look forward to. We didn't have the Battle Hardened to look forward to for another Classic Constructed look at the meta when it came to Indianapolis, because it was Blitz. Unfortunately, we can't just gauge those 2 events. We can only just gauge the calling. So now we have the calling in Auckland on the 24th. Let me go ahead and see if I got that right on the weekend. So yes, it would be on the 24th, 25th, and 26th. All the way to all the way for the 24th to the 26th on that one. That's another one that we have. And I think that's it in terms of tournament dry spells. So the next BNR may come a little early. They can push it up a little bit, but we have 2 more. These are the next 2 events to really solidify if Ice is too dominant. Now, when it comes to personal opinion, whenever I talked it over my head for the BNR on Twitter, I kind of made it my own hot take, right? I actually had okay, the meta is healthy. Like, anybody can come to a PQ on the lower level and push through, right? But maybe LSS, after the conversion rates and the percentages, may have thought a little bit different. They went with the bans, and they said that we can adjust as normal, adjust later on whenever the next one comes through. However, I had a thought that was a little bit different for me. I was thinking hypo would be a target, and I would be okay with just hypo. And I think aiming was just a little bit too much, in my personal opinion. However, my hot take was I could see hypo doing it for us as a tournament, because it hits me or Icelander and Oldhim at the same time. But there's also Rouse the Ancients, because that basically affects each other. We typically don't side in Blizzards or Hypothermias into Oldhims, because it's kind of conditional with a FAB, where you don't know if you're going to get a go again off of Rouse the Ancients, E-Strike, or Zealous Belting. You could make the conversation that you could put it in there as still a 2-block, but you may sit on that Hypothermia and Arsenal for a while, so that's why I don't usually side it in. So Rouse would go well with the Hypothermia band. You should not be able to say, okay, Rouse 0 for 7 go again, I'm showing you all this, and I can toss another 7 to 10 more damage at you at will, and basically go wide as a Starvo would be, because Starvo would say 13 Cripple and Crush Dominate with a Frozen Well at the end, or maybe a Lightning Surge from Arsenal. That was my particular Oldhim thought for that band, because you're also technically hitting Bravo, but Bravo didn't really need it. But I mean, collateral damage happens. Look at the amulet for Alexi. So I also had Remembrance, so it was potentially Hypothermia, Remembrance, and Rouse, and I still stand by that by saying that Rouse needs to go. Maybe they'll take a look at Oldhim, being that it's way more dominant than Icelander. 5 spots being dominated by Oldhim on the top 8. I don't know the styles of all 5. I want to say I heard a rumor that there was 3 fatigue and 2 normal Oldhams, like aggressive Oldham. So when it comes to that, you're gonna look at, okay, there's 2 other Icelanders. One of them is the fucking world champion. How are we gonna gauge just maybe Icelander isn't as crazy, but it could be just ice plus Oldham? Well, I guess you could say that that'd be the problem, that you can nerf both at the same time, but it's not just that. I think Oldham can do a lot of different things that everybody else can do all in one hero. I think he does everything a little bit too well. They're gonna look at Crown of Seeds, and they said that in the BNR announcement that they're still looking towards it, and they're taking their time. They're not gonna be too rushed to ban or restrict or suspend, as they would do, a legendary piece of equipment. When it comes to that, I'm glad, because they're not. I've always thought it has been a little bit too unfair, especially from an Icelander's point of view. It's free resource, and you can break frostbites. That's one way that we really need to hammer down on Oldham. So I think COS might get touched, but I still think that Rouse needs to be banned. That's my personal preference when it comes to the future of the meta, how we're seeing the calling and these ProQuest shake up. There was a percentage conversion rate. The graphic actually changed because there was 12 Oldhams that went into day 2. Ethan Van Sant, they had the wrong number, because I actually pointed it out because the percentage was wrong. So they really did have 40%, but it was, instead of 9, it was 12. So 40% of all Oldhams went into day 2. Icelanders was 50%. So there was 40% of Oldhams, and then you would take that all the way up to 55%, making the top 8, which is a little bit more consistent with the PQ, which means Winter's Well was not enough. I think they're going to need to take a look at some more Majestics that he has. And again, he might get the Oaken Old, or he might get Rouse. They might actually say, look, this is enough. Blitz, we had to take it out in Blitz because it's just way too strong. It can pay for your AB, and you're still hitting those breakpoints, which is why I think Oldham is one of those things that he can just do everything very well all together in one hero. Block efficiently, ignore damage efficiently, because that's the same thing as preventing damage with his defense reaction and Crown of Seeds. His shield can block. Basically, you feed to the resource of Crown of Seeds, which can feed into Rampart, so it's just a little bit more efficient that way. I think there's just a lot of things that he can do well and just stop altogether. He's so much more of a better Guardian than Bravo is, and unfortunately, if you went to go to see the percentage, it was 42 Bravos, I want to say, and only 1 went to day 2. Because Oldham is just a better Guardian. That's all it really is. And the same thing can go for Icelander. There was some Kanos that came in and they tried their luck, but I think it was about half, maybe a little less than half, that they went into day 2 of those Kanos. So I think a lot of people were unprepared when it came to the calling. Some of them just weren't packing the necessary stuff. They thought Icelander was dead. Some people were going up against 0 arcane barrier 5s, which they think they may just race the Icelander and be good with it. They go up against one AB dashes. I have heard on the grapevine that some Icelanders went up against those. So it's just, they may not be very great into the matchup when you're not prepared. And it's not an excuse that Ice is definitely dominant, but things can change down the road. And they know what's in outsiders more than we do. We're getting spoiled a little bit things at a time, and inertia tokens can help out with Crown of Seeds, so they may be just a little bit more reluctant to not ban Crown of Seeds for the future, and maybe just see if a couple more Majestic suspension cards for Oldham might work, and then say maybe let's see if inertia really helps out and gets rid of all their cards and just make them pitch. That's pretty much my entire take and my thoughts on the meta going forward. We really need to wait for these next 2 events to really tell us how the events shape the meta from then on out, as well as outsiders. A little bit more outsider spoilers would help us know if that can take care of Oldhim. But that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching. Next video, hopefully we'll get some more gameplay for you guys at Armory Night, and I'm going to shake it up just a little bit. Like I said before, I'm probably going to toss in Lexi. So if you want to watch that, stay tuned, leave the follow, and thanks for watching.